Okay, we're
Hello.
good. Yes.
Welcome to another edition of All or Not According to Jack. As I mentioned, I have a guest this week, Aaron Kupferberg, who is a brother of mine in the Odd Fellows Lodge. And Aaron is also very proficient with power pop music, and he wrote a book recently. Why don't you tell us about it, Aaron?
Yeah, this book's called Songs Stuck in My Head. It's all about power pop music and pretty much my power pop lists from 2006 all the way to 2020. So there's there's hundreds of bands reviewed here and a lot of interviews as well with famous artists like Susanna Hoffs and, lead singer of XTC, a whole bunch of people. So, you know, go to powerpopaholic.com if you're interested, and you'll see the ad on the right side of the screen.
Okay. And I think you froze for a minute, but you're back. Yeah, we've
Okay.
been having some technical difficulties
All
with it.
right. We'll try and get through this thing.
Yes, we will. So basically, as I mentioned, and as you can see on behind Aaron's wall there, on his wall behind him, our topic for today is all things Jethro Tull, in particular, ranking the albums. So we're
Yes.
going to talk about our top 10 albums of Jethro Tull, and then 11 through 15, we're going to put up in the comments section after I've put the video up. So, Aaron, why don't you start with your top 10? And we're going to ping pong back and forth.
All right. So I'm going to go with my number 10. My number 10 album was This Was, which is the first Tull album.
Nice.
And, it's got some great songs on here. It's got Song for Jeffrey. It's got a Christmas song, Move On Alone, which is a nice one, and one for John McGee, which is a cool thing here. But they were still a blues outfit at this point. They weren't really Tull as I consider Tull. They were like, oh, let's do a little bit of Traffic. Let's do a little bit of this. They were still feeling the waters when they did this, but you still had, with a Song for Jeffrey, a distinct sound, and you had Ian Anderson's distinct vocal with that. So that's why it stays number 10 on my list.
Okay. So,
There we go.
and yes, so as Aaron's talking, I'm going to be switching to a few backgrounds. And I kind of have Martin Bare's face covered, but this is an early rendition of the group who was together during This Was and the album Stand Up and Benefit.
Yep.
But bad move getting rid of Glenn Cornick. I never understood that, but
Yeah, no, he was a good player, but I'm glad they got Martin Bear.
yeah,
He made the sound.
yes, he did. So anyway, my number 10, and this was the first time that I saw Jethro Tull back in 1979 for this album. If you can see it without any glare, it's the album Stormwatch. Some great songs on this album. My favorite, Orion, Dark Ages, which they
A
opened
little
with. But
freeze.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, good stuff. Something's on the Move, Dun Ringel. It was the last of their what they call their folk trilogy. So there you have it, Stormwatch. So you're number 9.
My number 9 was War Child. War Child, I think it's a bad rap because it was sort of Ian's fourth attempt at a concept album around that would have been a movie.
Right.
But there's so many good songs on here. You have obviously the title track War Child. You have Ladies. You have
Yeah.
Skating Away, Sea Lion, and Bungle in the Jungle. I mean, although you get more than 4 or 5 tracks that are that good, it should be in your top 10 list somewhere. You
Well,
know.
we're going to talk more about that album. So we'll get to it. That's cool. And that album has really grown on me over the years. I bought it mainly for Skating Away and Bungle in the Jungle when I was a teenager, but
Right.
that entire album has grown on me. So we'll get to it. But anyway, my number 9, and I just happen to know that this is Pete Pardo of Sea of Tranquility's number 1, this album right here, Benefit.
Wow.
Yes. Now it's not my favorite because there are other albums close to it that were released at that time that are better, or I think. But I mean, with you there to help me, to cry you a song, which I love, Teacher, which actually was only on their US release, not their UK release. And
UK was a single, I think. It was just a single in UK.
right, but
But
it was released in the US, and I do have it on this copy.
I rank this album much higher, Jack, only because at this point, and a little bit to Pete's credit, I feel that with this album, with Stand Up, it basically solidified what the Tull sound was. They got rid of the rhythm and blues, stuff that they started out with, and it was uniquely theirs at that point. And they put a lot more electrical instruments and acoustic instruments together, where they really didn't do that before so much. That's why I rank that much higher.
Now, Play in Time was really cool with the backwards guitar. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. But I'm sure you'll talk about it.
Also my favorite. It's also got my favorite Tull riff, which is "To Cry You a Song."
Yes.
My favorite Tull riff. I mean, short of Aqualung. Yeah, and here it sounds a little bit something like this. Trying to remember how many cigarettes did I bring along. That's it.
All right.
So yeah, my favorite Tull riffs, and that basically also portended what was going to happen on Aqualung. So if you heard that, you're like, Aqualung was like that step up.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, it's definitely a cool riff, and Ian actually plays electric on that song. Martin apparently lent him one of his Les Pauls, so they can,
oh wow,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. All right, your number 8.
My number 8 was Minstrel in the Gallery. This was probably at their most Elizabethan. It was like, basically, holding court and and minstrelly type of approach. You'd have basically the acoustic guitars play this nice little, Celtic thing, and then heavy guitars come right after it, and just bring you into the rock part of it. And they do that throughout the album. My favorite songs from here, obviously the title track, Cold Wind to Valhalla, Requiem, and One White Duck, 0 equals nothing at all. So those are my favorite songs from that album. And it wears well. And it's one of those albums also that you need to listen to from beginning to end to really enjoy it. It's not like a singles album.
16-minute Baker Street Muse.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's pretty cool, but I have to be in a mood to listen to that. It's a long song.
Yeah.
And Tull has a lot, I think, better, longer songs, believe it or not. We'll get to that one. But still, it hits my number 8. I think it's pretty cool.
Okay, very nice. All right, so we're going to go to my number 8. And unfortunately, I am missing a couple of albums from my top 10, but it's not till number 6 that I'm missing. So my number 8 is this one, Heavy Horses. And you know what? I wish I could have ranked it higher, but their other albums are just that damn good. I mean, this is a great album in itself. Acres Wild, No Lullaby, One Brown Mouse, which I love. That song brings a tear to my eye. I don't know why. Heavy Horses, the title track. Rover, just a great album.
You can't really, other than I think The Mouse Police Never Sleeps, I think every song on that album hits the mark.
Yeah.
It's perfect in my opinion. And I ranked it much higher, and we'll get to that.
Well, that song, Mouse Police, supposedly he wrote that about his cat. That's what I heard. Yeah.
I believe it.
All right, your number 7.
My number 7 was Stormwatch.
Okay.
The reason this was number 7 was because it's the last album that John Glasscock did. Yeah. And basically, I consider every album after Stormwatch a different era of Tull. Tull changed
Yes.
after he left the band, and the sound was never the same after that,
He
I
passed
felt.
away, actually. I don't know if you knew that.
Hmm?
John
Yes.
Glasscock. Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away, and but there's still a bunch of great songs on this album.
Mm,
North Sea Oil, very much in the same vein as Heavy Horses, that came
right.
before it. Orion,
Right.
uh, Home, probably one of the loveliest ballads he's ever done.
Yeah.
Elegy, another great, ballad. And Dun Ringhill, probably one of the
Oh,
strongest
yes.
Tull songs ever. And Stitch in Time was also a favorite of mine. I really love that song as well. So there's enough, when you get, like I said, when you get 5 tracks that are that good, you got to sort of keep it in your top 10 somewhere. And that's where I kept mine.
Right. All right. So that was your 7, right? So
Yes.
now my 7, you already talked about it. This album, War
War
Child.
Child.
Now, what I love about this album, when they re-released it, they released a bunch of bonus tracks. So you already mentioned a bunch, but the song Paradise Steakhouse, I love. Sea Lion 2, which is one of the only songs that were sung by Jeffrey Hammond, the bassist. Rainbow Blues and Glory Row. Those are songs that made it to their greatest hits compilations, and I love those songs. And
Yeah,
another song you didn't mention, The Third Hurrah, and what was the other one? Oh, Backdoor Angels, which
like
got,
a lot. Backdoor Angel is a great song. I
yeah,
think a lot of the other ones you mentioned, they're all on the side 2 of the record,
right,
because I listened to War Child mainly on record when I was younger, and side 2 never stuck with me
right,
until much later. Than I listened to it, I said, yeah, these songs are good, but I'm so familiar with side 1,
right.
that I kept going back to side 1. I kept replaying side 1.
All righty. So your number 6.
My number 6 is the epic, one album, one song, Thick as a Brick. And just like I think in a past show you had mentioned, well, everyone listens to side A, no one listens to side B. A lot of people listen to side A and know side A backwards to forwards. They don't really know side B, and the beginning of side B is, probably some of the hardest,
Right,
coolest out there prog that Tull has done. In fact,
right.
many consider Thick as a Brick like one of the top 3 progressive rock albums of all time.
Oh,
And it's
no.
my number 6. There's just, you just have, it's one of those things you just cannot stop listening to.
Yeah. So yeah, so as you're talking, this is a picture from the back of Heavy Horses. No relation to what we're talking about.
No relation. But the cool thing about Thick as a Brick is it was such a big hit that Ian kept trying to repeat that formula 4 other times. He tried
Right,
it with, and it never quite hit the same way. He tried it with Passion Play. He tried it with Too Old to Rock and Roll. He tried it with a few other ways. It never hit the same note as it did with Thick
right.
as a Brick,
Yeah.
which is, I consider, it's a masterpiece of an album, and that's why it's high in my top 10. That's why it's my number 6.
Funny that you mentioned Passion Play, because that is my number 6, and that's one of the CDs that are missing from my collection that I couldn't find. But so my son Jason, he's
Yes.
doing this project, and he actually convinced me to start it. I'm going to start it on July 1st. He's listening to one album every day for the entire year. And he's taking some of my suggestions. And one suggestion while we were on the road traveling somewhere, might have been to Florida, but I told him, listen to Jethro Tull, Passion Play, because that's like nothing you've ever listened to. And he
It's a
did.
good album to take on a road trip. I'll give you
Yeah.
that. I'll give you that. My big problem with Passion Play is Ian tries to do too much
Right,
with what's there. I mean, there's a
right,
lot of great little bits all
mhm,
throughout the entire
right,
album, but not one complete song that basically stuck with me.
right.
I kind of, if you're going to pin me down, I like Silver Cord. I like the Overseer Overture.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that's my
That's really,
favorite
it's
best
really
on
good.
the
That's
album.
something that you can take in. The Flight from Lucifer is
Yes,
good too.
yeah,
But like I said, the rest of the album, it just, like I said, great parts, not great whole songs.
Well, what I was going to say about it, so when you listen to it for the first time, it's a little hard to catch on, and it doesn't start to move until about the 10-minute mark. And for me, you could throw that hair that lost its spectacles away completely. But I understand why they needed to do it, because it was a play. They were
Right.
simulating a play, and it had to be like this overture, or like almost like an intermission interlude that was entertaining the audience while they were out taking a pee break or whatever. But then
Yeah.
right after the end of Hair Who Lost His Spectacles, I love the rest of the album, including the Overseer Overture, which you mentioned.
Yeah, great song there.
Yeah.
Well-meaning fool, pick up thy head and ride.
There you go.
Yep.
So yeah, I totally get it. So I guess now we're up to our number fives, right?
Yep. Number 5.
Number
Go ahead.
5 for me. This was pretty easy for me because it sort of always falls in the middle of my Tull list, which is Songs from the Wood. And here you have, again, another 4 or 5 songs. There you go. That are just, perfect songs here. Songs from the Wood, obviously. Jack and the Green, which almost sounds like an extension of Songs from the Wood. They both kind of go, they're both in the same kind of meter. They're both like in the same tempo. Really good. A Hunting Girl, which probably the best song I heard live in Nassau Coliseum was, I saw them during the A tour, believe it or not. And
oh, wow. And they played Hunting Girl, huh? Nice.
Yeah, and they played Hunting Girl during that tour because nobody wanted to hear anything from A.
Right.
At the time. They played an A song at the beginning and they played an A song near the end. They did, but the middle of the concert was, and they played Hunting Girl. It was probably the coolest version I saw. Velvet Green, another good song. The Whistler, and
Now,
another song.
1996, I believe
Yeah.
it was. I saw them on the what tour was that?
I only saw 2 tours. I saw.
Well, anyway, I saw him in 1996, and he pulls out this penny whistle. I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna play the Whistler, and they did. It was the coolest
There
thing.
you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Beltane, which is another good song.
Beltane, great
from that album that I really like. So, like I said, this year had more than 4 good songs. This had like 5, 6 good songs. So, therefore, it's higher up on my list. Therefore, it made my number 5.
Okay, very cool. Now, my number 5, you already talked about. And again, I don't have that CD handy, but it's Minstrel in the Gallery. I love that opening, title song, and that crushing solo that Martin Barrett.
Oh yeah, right after you get that's the acoustic, and then after that you get that great guitar riffs.
So that's a highlight for me. One White Duck is a great song. Now I love Baker Street Muse. I love those long epics from Tull. So
I mean, I think it works overall. If you're going to make a comparison, Minstrel in the Gallery is a long concept prog album. Works much better for me than Passion Play, but not as good as Thick as a Brick still.
Understood,
sort of like falls in the middle there. But it's still in my top 10, and I totally get it. So now we're up to number 4.
Yeah.
And you had already mentioned number 4 for me, which was Benefit. So Benefit for me, obviously we mentioned Cry for You a Song. Yep. For Michael Collins, Jeffrey and me, Sun, Saucity, You're a Woman, great, nice, pleasant ballad. Teacher, of course, that you had mentioned before, A Time for Everything, which is a good song, and A Play in Time, which I think the thing with Benefit and why there are, I think, less fans of Benefit than the obvious bigger albums like Aqualung is the fact that I think some of these songs didn't get enough airplay at the time when they were originally released. It didn't get enough, other than Cry You a Song, really. It didn't get enough play. And listening to it now, it's a much cleaner album than earlier Tull. It's pretty much what the Tull sound finalized and became. It only evolved a little bit more with Heavy Horses, I felt. So you had the electric and the acoustic, and then you started adding all the other instruments, the violin, the mandolin, all these other instruments started with benefit. They didn't add that stuff till this album. Once that was there, they continued. I felt they innovated with more compositions, more elaborate arrangements, pretty much until Stormwatch. And then, like I said, things changed.
Right. Okay. Very cool synopsis on that. I mean, that is a great album. There's no, arguing that point. But so I switched to the songs from the Wood background, and that is my number 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Top to bottom, songs from the Wood, the title track, which they played the first time I saw them. Jack and the Green, it's about me. Cup of Wonder, that's a song you didn't mention. I love Cup of Wonder. That is
that's one of those songs like I need to hear again and again. It doesn't quite stick with me as quickly as the others.
Velvet Green is my other favorite from this album.
Velvet Green's a great song.
Yeah. The Whistler we mentioned. Fire at Midnight, I actually like the version that they re-recorded on the Christmas album, but it is a great song. Yeah. But that's my spiel on songs from the Wood. Amazing album for its time, 1977. So there you have it. Okay, to Aaron's top 3.
So my top 3. So we're getting close to the end. So number 3 for me was Stand Up. This was where basically you had Martin Bear basically played his first big song, Living in the Past. It was number 3 on all the British charts. It basically put Tull on the map, this album. They were still doing some blues type numbers in there, but the sound at this point was distinct. You couldn't say they were like, unlike this was, you couldn't say, oh, these guys are trying to imitate Traffic or they're trying to imitate another prog band. No, they had their own sound at this point. Great songs like Nothing Is Easy, Fat Man, Living in the Past, we already mentioned. Sweet Dream, iconic song. Driving Song.
Sweet Dream, I don't think made it to the to Stand Up. I think that was a single at the time that made it to the compilation Living in the Past.
No, it was in the remaster of the album.
Unless it was on the remaster, that's possible. Yeah.
I'm looking at the remaster.
Okay.
Also, you had Driving Song.
Yep,
like that. And We Used to Know.
Oh, love it.
Beautiful song. Great, relaxing tune.
That was the song that they accused the Eagles of plagiarizing the chord progression.
I believe it. They had so many inventive arrangements in this album. It's really what set them apart. And people, it's my brother's number 1. My brother Dan, he loves this album more than any other Tull album.
That's
and he likes the fact that it has the jazzy in here, and of course Bourrée, which is probably the most recognizable flute by itself.
Yeah,
that's the great thing. Ian knew a theme when he played one, and he could do it just on a flute, and the crowd would go crazy. So you'd hear that. Back to the Family, another great song.
I love
Looking into the Sun.
That has a great bass line throughout the song. Back to the Family. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's bass led. I mean, that's why this ranks so high. This is, my number 3, and frankly, it would be higher. I think the only reason it isn't higher is because I have 2 albums that I just personally love better. But this is a favorite for a lot of Tull fans. It's when their sound solidified and became ultimately recognizable. Nobody could copy them after this album.
Right. Okay. Good to know. And just so everybody knows, I do know Aaron's brother Dan. He's also a member of our lodge. Good guy. Glad you brought him on board.
Thanks.
Okay, so my number 3 needs no introduction. I was recently, we were talking about the new Rush pinball machine. So
yes.
one of the members of Sea of Tranquility, his name is Steve Keeler. He owns a store, a record CD type store in Middletown, New York, and he has a whole section of rock related pinball machines.
Oh, I gotta visit the store, man. I'm going up
Yeah.
to Middletown. Road trip.
Yeah. But so he had a bunch of us on his show, and we talked about this album right here, Aqualung.
Aqualung.
Because I believe it just celebrated a 50th anniversary.
Yes,
No.
there was a 50th anniversary remaster.
Yeah, and
Of
we
it,
recently spent a whole hour talking about this album, and the fact, and my take on it is that the fact of the matter is you have three very well-known radio hits on this album: Aqualung, Cross-Eyed Mary, Locomotive Breath. But then I like everything that was a deeper track. You know.
Yeah, I think, like I said, every song here is great.
Yeah.
And it's good that you brought this up because even though it's my number 2
Okay.
on here. So, you have other songs that I really like Mother Goose.
Yeah.
Great song. And one of my favorite songs, and my Hymn 43. I mean, I could sing this and scream this in the car at any point in any time of the day.
Right.
It's just such a great song with a great riff. The interesting thing about Aqualung is probably the most consistent concept album because it's not just about, well, do the songs all...
You would get pissed off at you, buddy.
Yeah, well, I consider this a concept album because you're basically talking about, a person's journey from either belief, belief in God to non-belief in God.
Right.
And it sort of follows along that theme. Now, it's not a linear story, but it is a concept album because there is a theme around every song relates to the other songs in it. And they even mention other songs in it. Cross-Eyed Mary mentions Aqualung. So there are all these like connected tissues.
Some crossover lyrics, yeah.
Right. Very much like The Who's Tommy, where, even a throwaway song on Tommy, if it was recorded for, for that album, it's related to all the other songs on that album.
Right.
There's a theme you hear through it. So, and this is the first time and the most successful way that Tull has done it. And like I said, number 1 everywhere. Everyone loves it. It's my number 2.
Okay. One song we didn't mention, My God. I love it.
Yeah, My God is...
Yeah.
That's probably the central theme to this album. Not Aqualung. My God is the central theme because that's what the whole story's about on this album.
Yeah.
And also the great guitar work here.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Amazing.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that's your number 2. Now, the funny thing, you mentioned that Aqualung being a concept album. Ian didn't think so. And what he did was he said, you know what? If they want a concept album, I'm going to give them the mother of all concept albums. And it's my number 2, Thick as a Brick.
Thick as a Brick, yes.
Yeah.
That is a concept album as well.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
But it started out as a joke, that basically that an 8-year-old wrote these lyrics and that Ian, built an album around it. But
Right. I mean, the story, the interesting thing is the story behind it. If you ever opened up the album, the gatefold album, it has the entire paper there.
Right.
And you can read through the entire paper and get the entire story.
Oh, I know.
Now,
yeah.
It's the good thing about it. Here's why I don't consider it is a concept album in a way, but here's why it's not as successful as Aqualung. If you don't read everything, or if you don't follow those lyrics that closely, you don't know what's going on.
Ah, gotcha.
Whereas with Aqualung, you don't even need to see a lyric sheet. You can hear a line out of one song and then a line out of the next song, and then follow the dots and understand what the concept is.
Okay.
Try doing that with Passion Play. You can't.
No. Well, as I explained to Jason, my son, I've always been more of a music guy. So me, it's always been about the music first. You know, the for me the lyrics have always been secondary, and that's why I love these albums. It just the instrumental work is just to die for.
Oh, it's just perfection. You
Yeah,
can't beat the instrumental work, on all these levels.
right. And and like you said earlier, I don't think Tull would have been as great as it was without Martin Bear. He helped really
Yes.
make
No,
that sound.
he made the sound. I mean, as
Yeah,
far as I'm concerned, along with Ian and his flute.
right. Okay, so drum roll. What is your number one?
My number one, and I've mentioned this to you before, but I'll let everyone else know. My number one, believe it or not, is Heavy Horses. And the
Knew it.
reason for that, Heavy Horses is number one, is this is where I considered Tull at their peak. Um, they they went down after this pretty much. They innovated as much as they could with the guitar and the mandolin and violin, and they added more Celtic rhythms at this point to where they didn't do it in Songs from the Wood, but they did it on Heavy Horses. They also added synthesizer that they haven't used before. So it's like they layered everything on top of each other, and Heavy Horses was the peak of that. Like we'd mentioned before, really no bad songs on the album, unless you consider The Mouse Police Never Sleeps.
Right.
And I don't consider that a terrible song. That's just
Yeah.
a weird one that doesn't quite fit with
It was
the
a
album.
goof. I mean,
Yeah,
I've heard that Ian Anderson actually likes Captain Beefheart, so I can forgive him for for the Mouse Police That Never Sleep. Captain Beefheart for me is just unlistenable. But
Right. Yeah, I don't really listen to that stuff that much
yeah,
either, unless it happens to slip into my Zappa mix or something. If I'm
right.
listening to Frank Zappa, you throw a Captain Beefheart in, I won't notice the difference so much. But with the Heavy Horses, like I said, that's the reason why it's my peak. It's also, there's another sentimental reason why it's my number one. It is officially the first album I ever bought on my own
Oh
when I
wow.
grew up. Yeah, when I walked into a record store and I had I think I had $12 at the time, and I could only buy one record. I could only afford one record at the time. They were 10.99 or something at the time, and I bought Heavy Horses
What made you
on
choose Heavy
on
Horses?
yeah on the advice of the record store guy, because I said I want a rock album, and I want something that's good, and I didn't know what to pick. Originally at that time when I was around 13, 14, I was into the Doors. I didn't know
Okay.
anything about Tull. And I said, and they were all out of Doors albums.
Wow.
And I said, because I wanted the last Doors album and Morrison Hotel. And they said, we don't have it, but this is really good. Try it. I said, okay.
Okay.
Tried it, never put it away.
And you liked it on the first listen?
Yeah, I liked it on the first listen,
Good.
the
That's
first
great.
side at least on the first listen, and then I kept listening and listening, and I wore out the groove on the record
Very
practically, and
nice.
got it on cassette later, and then CD after that. So it was one of those things that helped create a Tull fan out of me.
Very good. That's great. I'm glad because I mean, there were times where you buy an album just out of the blue and you're taking a chance and it's crap.
That's true. That's happened too.
Yeah. So I'm glad it worked out. And that is a great album. So
Yeah,
anyway, so my number one, and you haven't heard me talk about this one yet. Stand Up.
end up. Yep.
Yeah. I just, again, it was transitional, but the songs are just so powerful. Nothing is easy. That would, that would be a top track for me. New Day Yesterday, still a little bluesy. We used to know, even Fat Man with that kind of Mediterranean sound.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh wait, that's Living in the Past you're playing.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's on
yeah,
that
but
album.
that was released as a single at that time. Yeah, yeah. Anywho, Beret, Back to the
Back to the
Family,
Family. Yep.
Look into the Sun. We used to know. I think I mentioned that. But overall, I mean, you could see that they were still a little into the blues, but they were transitioning out of it into the more folky sound.
Yep.
And Nothing is Easy. It's like a combination of blues and there's a little jazz in there and even a little classical. I know. So.
What do you think is the most, out of all the albums, what do you think is the most underrated Tull album?
That's a very good
And we're talking
question.
about like the later albums here, so things after 1980, because I have a lot of my in your top 15 or
I
top
have
20.
I can answer for you. I can answer that for you. And I think it is actually just to your right there on that little poster, Crest of the Knave.
Crest of the Knave, yes.
Yeah. Well, that album, I mean, that's got Farm on the Freeway, which I love. What's it, Vienna? Uh, oh no, Budapest. One night in
Budapest is a
Budapest.
good song.
Yeah,
Got Jumpstart,
Jumpstart. Yeah,
which is a good song. It's one of those Tull albums that where they tried to revive their original sound
mm,
at that time, where they tried to get their fan base back because after albums like Under Wraps, they were losing their fans left and right. I think the most underrated Tull album of that era is Broadsword and the Beast,
okay,
only because their heavy guitar sound and they're more that for me was more of a revival of
right.
their earlier sound than what came later. Even
Mhm.
though Crest of the Knave did do a little bit of that, every successive album after Crest of the Knave kind of got farther and farther away from that sound.
Uh-huh.
You know, so I mean, the last Tull album that I really kind of can sit through and like a lot was Roots to Branches.
Yes,
My
yes.
opinion.
That was the album I was thinking of in the 1996 tour that I couldn't remember. Yes, that was a good album.
There's about like two or three good songs there that I can sit through and I'll add to my Tull mix when I'm listening in the car.
Now, I have a question for you, Aaron. So
Yes.
now this kind of dogs me. So now that they're going to be releasing an album called The Zealot Gene. Now,
Yes.
and granted, he's doing this with all the players that he's used for his solo albums for the last few years. Why
Yes.
did he go back to the Jethro Tull name? I'm curious.
Well, there was an interview with him recently where he basically said, "Well, I could have gone back to the Tull name. I should have gone back to the Tull name 15 years ago." He didn't, because part of it, I think, was because he was worried about him sounding too much like like his solo stuff. He didn't want to when you name an album Jethro Tull, it comes with expectations,
Right,
and he didn't want those expectations to sort of flatten whatever he was
right,
doing.
right.
So that's
right.
why he kept it, under the name Ian Anderson and stuff. I mean, personally, I think they should have made an Ian Anderson solo album.
Yeah. Well, that was
Only
the
because the
original
sound is
plan.
so different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few good songs on A. I'm not going to totally bash A like I will bash Under Wraps. I can't stand that album. But
Right.
A has
Yeah.
some good songs on it, and that's more Ian Anderson's vision of where the band was going to go, and as well as his solo career.
Right.
So that's why I think he changed the name back, because he wanted more attention at this point, because it's been 15 years. People are hungry for another Tull album,
Yeah.
really.
Well, fingers crossed that it's good, and we will. I am going to review it on this channel, so stay tuned. And just so you know, this picture right here, this is a picture that I took myself back
Nice.
in 2012 when I saw Ian Anderson do the Thick as a Brick tour at Beacon Theater. I was fortunate enough. I had my not my Nikon, my whatever, my
Your camera.
yeah, my camera. I forget I'm drawing a brain freeze. And I don't know the name brand.
Because brain freeze is fine as long as we don't have any technical freezes anymore. I don't mind.
But I got it with the extender lens, and I just love that the way his flute gleams in the light there. But
No, it's a nice shot. Very
oh
nice
yeah,
shot.
without a doubt, yeah.
I'm surprised, and that was in 2014. You said
2012,
2012.
and
I
he
mean, I'm
was in front
surprised.
of a black curtain, which is why you see all black behind him. But,
No, I saw him. Last time I saw him live was the Under Wraps tour, and I remember after that, there was a thing where he had physical problems and he couldn't go on one leg for a
Right.
long time. He was on a stool or
You also
leaning
had some
against
throat
the stool.
problems, supposedly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He had back problems as well and
Right.
stuff. So I remember that distinctly. I'm surprised he was able to still do that and still perform that way.
Right. So that about wraps it up. Did you want to talk any more about your book, Aaron?
Um, yeah, I can mention a little bit more about songs stuck in my head. Basically, Jethro Tull is not power pop. Let me just make that clear right away. That's pure rock and roll. Power pop is more of like the Who and the Beatles combined with crunchy guitars. Okay, so that's kind of how I define power pop short term, and that's what my book's about. So, but I do like things other than power pop, of course, and Jethro Tull's one of them. And but if you're interested in checking out what type of music I'm talking about, go to powerpopaholic.com, and you'll see reviews, and there's live band, there's Bandcamp feeds in there as well, so you can hear the music on top of that. And if you want the book, there's an ad on the right side of the page. You can click it and get the book.
So it's just powerpopaholic.com.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. And like I said, it will be at the bottom, above the
Near the comment
comments.
section.
Yep, in my little detail section. But anyway, I want to thank Aaron, who's like I said, he's a brother of mine in our Oddfellow Lodge. Thank you for coming on, Aaron. It was a pleasure to have you on, and I hope to have
Thank
you
you,
on in the
Jack.
future.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here, man. Let's talk about more bands,
Yes,
more music all the
we
time.
gotta come up with some more. And like I said, I got a really funny idea for Dave, and we'll talk about it Sunday at the football games. But
That'll be a good debate. If
yes,
only we can get that on film,
yep, yeah, that'll be priceless. But anyway, all right. So for Aaron Kupferberg, I'm gonna say good night to everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is, all or not, according to Jack. Write your comments in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. It will probably be Seinfeld related, so stay tuned. Have a good one. Bye.
Take care.